as I was getting deeper and deeper into understanding who I was and what I wanted to achieve in my life, I realized that I wanted to have like a more deeper impact on the planet. And now being a physiotherapist with a very local touch points, so to say, it seemed like I could only have impact to people in Delhi, maybe surrounding areas by about, say, 50 miles, 100 miles, and that's about it. And that started to kind of make me feel like this is a restriction that's been put upon me.
Welcome to Navigation and Discovery with Cameron Singh. On today's episode, we have Utkarsh Narang. He hails from Melbourne, Australia, and we're going to be talking a little bit about his story. A little bit about Utkarsh is he recently did a TEDx talk really capturing his story. And one of the things about Utkarsh is he started as a physiotherapist, and then he went to pursue a career in education, working for a university, and now he's running his own business, and he's had to experience a lot of change in his life throughout his journey, going into different industries, experiencing a lot of change, and now pursuing what he's pursuing, which we're going to talk about more in this episode. So I really hope that you enjoy this episode. You know, you might be experiencing a lot of change in your life, career changes, or maybe you want to go through a career change. You feel called to pursue something very different. And so Utkarsh is going to talk about his experiences of going through fear and having the courage to do things that he's never planned for or experienced. So I really hope that you enjoy this episode with Utkarsh Narang. Well, Utkarsh, welcome to the podcast. We're really happy to have you on this episode.
Thank you, Cameron. Looking forward to our conversation. And I always intrigued when we're talking between the US and Australia, how it's my first call of the day, but the last one for you. So beautiful that technology helps us connect in this beautiful world.
Yeah, well, it's so amazing just how we were able to connect and from, across the globe. And that's what's so amazing about, things such as, doing a podcast and how we met and learning more about you and your story, and which really sparked some interest that I wanted to know more about you and your story. And so I'm really excited to have you on and to learn more, because you such have a unique story. You did a TEDx talk a while back, and I'm very intrigued and definitely want to learn more, which is why I'm happy that we were able to connect and we're talking today.
Absolutely. And looking forward to this conversation. I always get intrigued by the human stories, because I think each one of us brings such depth and nuance to the way we have lived our lives. And I feel like even though on the surface they all might look very different, but deep within, Cameron, they're all connected to something very, very meaningful and universal. And my hope is that today you and I can decipher that uniqueness amongst our journeys, and share it with your listeners.
Yeah, and that's the real purpose of this podcast and why I started it, is because everyone has their own story. It doesn't matter what background you come from, where you are within the globe, what industry you're in, what you're doing. It's just so amazing to learn from different stories, different challenges, different wins, different successes, and be able to share that to this audience, and with hopes that they're able to learn from your story. It doesn't matter your background, your experience, or where you are in the world. So
Yeah.
so I wanted to start off by talking a little bit about your careers. Reading about you and doing some research before we met, you've done a lot so far in your career. I think four different things that you've done in different industries. Talk us through a little bit about that, and yeah, tell us a little bit about your different careers.
Absolutely. As
Yeah.
I reflect back on this journey that I've had, Cameron, part of me always like asks myself, like, Utkarsh, what did you really do in all these 20 years? And then it's moments like these when I'm having this conversation that I tend to realize that it's uh, it's it's quite massive leaps that I've taken through the career, and I'll share more about it. But again, bringing it back, how it ties to who am I, and so that's going to be kind of the crux of our conversation. So yeah, Cameron, it began 20 years ago, um, where my career started as a physical therapist, and so born back home in India to parents who were both doctors. This was kind of expected, right? That Utkarsh, you got to become a doctor too, and
Yeah.
it was never kind of forced upon me. I think that's all I heard growing up. So it became like a natural extension of who I wanted to be. And so I did my master's in orthopedic physiotherapy and started my own clinic 20 years ago. And physiotherapy was a great expression of who I wanted to be, because I was able to take care of patients. I was able to give them a higher quality of life, and so it seemed very purposeful, and it seemed profitable, because I, over 6 7 years, ended up having 3 clinics. But as I was getting deeper and deeper into understanding who I was and what I wanted to achieve in my life, I realized that I wanted to have like a more deeper impact on the planet. And now, being a physiotherapist with a very local touch points, so to say, it seemed like I could only have impact to people in Delhi, maybe surrounding areas, by about, say, 50 miles, 100 miles, and that's about it. And that started to kind of make me feel like this is a restriction that's been put upon me, and I cannot touch lives beyond this radius of mine. And I share this in my TEDx talk as well, Cameron, which we'll talk more about. But I started to sense that I was this frog in a well, where I know that there's this ocean of possibilities beyond this well. But for me, the well was a beautiful place. It was my comfort zone. It was a place where I was thriving. And so I started to ask myself, like, and network with people as to what else could I do with my life, because I knew that this was not a satisfactory path, and 5, 10, 15 years later I'll be regretting. And that's one thing that I've kind of always tried to make happen for myself, that there should be no regrets from the life that I've lived. And so through networking, I met a professor at Columbia Business School in New York, where they were looking for hiring and expanding their team. And I had no idea what I'll do with them. But I went to the office, which was in Gurgaon at that moment in India, and I said to the founder, please hire me. And they're like, Utkarsh, you're a physical therapist. What do we do with you? You will
Mhm.
not be writing prescriptions to our participants of our global executive programs. And I'm like, I'll figure it out. Just give me one opportunity, and I promise I'll figure it out. And
Mhm.
somehow that confidence, I think, Cameron, resonated with them, and they gave me 3 months. And they said, Utkarsh, it's January of 2013. We give you 3 months till about, say, end of March, April. And if you can figure out and if you can deliver impact for us, we will hire you full time. But if not, then why don't you go back to your physiotherapy? And I thought, like, it's a fair deal. And the only thing that I told them was that this is my profit and loss statement. And that's how I think I was bold in that moment, that this is what I earn right now. And if you end up hiring me in April of 2020, April of 2013, you would have to pay me this much. And I was very clear about that, because to me, it was this principle of being non-attached to the outcome was always there, but I wanted to do my best still. And so they hired me, and I stayed with them for 8 years instead of just the three that the experiment ran for. And in 8 years, I started filming and editing for them. Went on to do a lot of sales and operations for them in Asia Pacific and Europe. And so those 8 years were really they redefined my identity in beautiful ways. And then when the pandemic came about in 2020, I always thought that I'll stay with that institute forever, and I'll retire from there that office when I'll turn maybe 85. But when the pandemic came, the world changed, and I again had the desire of changing again. And that's when I became an executive coach, a leadership facilitator, content creator, and now going on to TEDx speaker and author. So that's been the journey. And yeah, I'll pause my monologue now.
Yeah, I relate so much to your story because even for myself, and that's why I'm glad we're chatting, is, even my first thing that I did in my career was, I think, 8 9 years with it, living that corporate job and stuff like
Yeah,
that. And
yeah,
I felt so limited, and it was very difficult to come to that realization that you needed to make a change. So I
yeah,
wanted to learn, like, how was that process for you, going from a physiotherapist, if I'm saying it right, to
correct. Yeah,
now you're with Columbia University. That's not an easy change to make or easy decision to make. How was that process for you? Because I think a lot of people struggle with this today, and it doesn't matter what age you are. I think a lot of people feel, I'm destined for more. I want to pursue more. And they're in this comfortable job that they're making probably good money,
Yeah.
but they know they can do so much more, but they're constrained in this box that they've created when that
Yeah.
box might look different for everyone that's
Yeah.
listening. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a massive question, and it's a very important question. And that's what I try and help others also achieve now, Cameron. I think the
Hmm.
first step really there is, Cameron, that you have to be really dissatisfied with what you have in that present moment. And even
Mm.
though parts of physical therapy were really purposeful, and I could see that change within people when I was helping them live better lives and strengthen themselves and this and that, but there was part of it that did not satisfy me at all. And even though I was successful from the outside, but internally there was this very strong dissonance, that what am I doing with my life? And I could have reframed it and said, that's what you're destined for, Utkarsh, and that's what your parents wanted you to become. Now you become a physiotherapist, you have this setup, you have these 3 clinics in Delhi. How the hell are you going to wrap it up? And I very clearly remember when I first took that decision that I'm going to try something new with my life, the support was not fully there, because in India, with my parents and others around us, we've been trained, right, that if you get into one career, you study for like 6 7 8 years for that, then you
Yeah.
pursue that path, and you don't change that till you're about like 60 70. I mean, no one would imagine changing careers like that. But then I think that dissonance really forced me and motivated me to try something new. And on
Mm.
the outside, it might seem that this was like a switch on, switch off, that on one day I came and met this professor at the business school, and life changed for me. It did not, because I remember, Cameron, January, and I started working with them. In February, I had a call, and my initial role was around the marketing team, so to say. And so I had a call at about 10 p.m. India time, which was, I think, 7 a.m., 8 a.m. or 10 a.m. EST for New York. And in that moment, I was someone who would sleep on time and sleep at like 9, 9:30. And I missed that call. And that was supposed to be my first big call, learning how to do marketing and this and that. And I had the other people waiting, and I did not show up on the call. The next morning when I woke up, I was like, Utkarsh, now you'll be fired. You did not belong here. Why were you even trying to do that? So that feeling of the imposter, that feeling of that I'm
Yeah.
not anything else beyond a physiotherapist, I think that was very strong in that moment. But then the path again comes back, is like, what actions can you take? What steps can you take to redefine yourself, to redefine your identity? How much effort are you ready to put in to learn the new skill? And how much are you comfortable being uncomfortable, Cameron? Because we end up when we end up trying to change careers or trying to look outside the box, then there's a lot of uncertainty. And I think over
Yeah.
time you have to get very very comfortable with uncertainty.
Yeah, you mentioned something about parents, and I know we both have that commonality,
Yeah,
being of Indian descent, and this is not only unique with our culture, but other cultures as well.
absolutely.
And I think that's where the hesitation is, people continue doing what they're doing and continue to
Yeah,
be dissatisfied because, oh no, I'm gonna upset my parents. They had this
yeah,
dream for me to become a doctor or a lawyer, whatever that might look like,
yeah,
and so they stay in it. How did you how I guess two questions. How was the initial reaction of your parents when
yeah.
you were going to make this change? And then I'm sure at some point they came to accept it. And how
Yeah.
did that happen?
Yeah. So I've been blessed, and I'll be honest about that. My parents have been uh, really supportive throughout this whole journey, and I also applaud my partner, my wife, for staying with me for the last, say, 20 years, and seeing me go through all these changes. Because the first reaction always like, "What's wrong with you, Utkarsh? What are you trying to do now?" And I understand that, and so I've never been impatient with their reaction. I've been like, I understand that you don't understand right now what I'm
Yeah.
trying to do, but the first person that I'm going to be answerable to is myself. And if I cannot look myself at the mirror and say that, Utkarsh, you did good today, then that's a life that's disappointing. And if I'm disappointed in myself, then I'm going to be disappointed with my partner, and I'm going to be disappointed with my children, and I'm going to be disappointed with my parents. So I think with that initial reaction always came, but I was always very patient with them, and they were very patient with me. And
Mm.
so through that process, I clearly remember my grandfather. He's passed on since then, but he said, the statement he said was that, Utkarsh, you're going to disrupt the whole family, because we were all kind of staying together. My dad was a physician. He had his private practice, and then I had mine, my wife had hers as well. So it was a very well knit unit, all of us together, in terms of the healthcare we were providing in the area. But they understood that sometimes disruption is important, and over the years, then they also have moved along that journey, and they've also evolved as individuals. And I keep telling them that I'm full of gratitude for how they supported me, and how I was patient with them as well. That I'm not going to blood out and react to you. That why don't you understand this? Because I understand that they cannot understand. So I think
Mm.
that alignment, Cameron, really helped, and that open communication that I've always had with my parents and my partner, that's always allowed me to make these shifts.
Yeah. And how did you embrace the going into the unknown or going into the uncomfortable? Because of course, going from being what I would call comfortable, right, in your initial job, being a physiotherapist, and going to Colombia, um, you're going into the uncomfortable, right? You're
Yeah,
going into a lot of uncertainty. How did
yeah.
you embrace the unknown, embrace the uncertainty? Let's just talk about your Columbia University experience when you first started
Yeah.
there.
Yeah, I think the big reason there was, so in terms of that role, Cameron. So the business school, the professor who was working there, he had an office back home in India, and so there was parts of my life that could still stay the same, which is I could still stay in India where I wanted to. My family still could thrive in that area, and then I got to travel multiple times to the business school and work there for weeks at stretch. And so I think the big thing that came through that whole experience was that I'd started to work on my values very early on. That there
Mm,
are certain values that I really hold pristine and important to my existence, which are discipline, excellence, growth, freedom, and love.
mm,
And so for me, everything came around that: what can I learn today? How can I grow today? And there was joy in that growth, there was joy in that learning. And so rather than focusing on the uncertainty and what's going to happen next week and what's going to happen next month and how am I going to learn this new role, I started to kind of quantify my life in terms of success being that: did I grow today? Did I learn something new today? And then this uncertainty became almost my partner, because it was helping me understand that through this uncertainty I get to grow every day. I need to have certain principles and values and discipline in terms of executing those things, but learning was the mainstay of my existence. And so uncertainty actually helped me thrive, because I started to feel very comfortable with that state.
mm. I think this is a natural transition to going into your TEDx talk.
Yeah,
But before we go into that, I want to learn more about how that opportunity came to be for you.
yeah, yeah. So what happened, since the time that I kind of quit my role at the business school in 2020, I
Hmm.
started my own company, Cameron, which is called Ignited Neurons. And so we do executive coaching, we do learning facilitation for organizations and even for B2C clients. But throughout this journey, I know that when you have to build your thought leadership, then a TEDx is an important aspect to your brand out there. And I've when since being back home in India, I always thought like at the right time it'll come to me, but I put in a lot of effort towards it also. But at some point last year, my wife and I thought that we would want to move to this new land where I am right now, Melbourne, Australia. And so March of 2023, we packed our bags and our kids, and the kids were not in those suitcases. We moved halfway across the world from India to Australia. Now, as I came here, when you're coming to a new place, then the network that you had back home in India was no more useful, because yes, they can be you can be in touch with them and you can grow and learn with them, but I had to build a new network here in Australia. And so I started to meet people, and networking overall makes me uncomfortable, Cameron, because the part of me that tells me is that, Utkarsh, you'll go into a room, there'll be like 100 people that you'll have to talk to. Now there is a need to talk to each one of them. And so how do you really do that? And then one of the first people who I met in Australia, he told me, Utkarsh, when you walk into a room with 100 people, don't try to network with all 100. Just try and network with 3 people deeply, and that's success to you. And that
Mm,
redefinition, that reframing of this idea of networking really helped me thrive in this new land. And so through that network came an opportunity where I saw one of my friends. auditioned for the TEDx opportunity. And this TEDx happened at Mornington Peninsula here in Melbourne. And so I auditioned for it. There were about 100 speakers in the room, got selected into the top 13. And then it was a grueling four-month journey of building the right script and making sure that I practice enough to be on that stage. And the TEDx is now on YouTube, and we can put the link into the show notes for people to look at it.
Yeah, for sure. And I wanted to provide to talk about your topic that you talked
Mhm.
about because it was a topic that resonates dear to me as well because with all the change that you've had, with all the experiences that you've been through, I'm sure also moving from India to Melbourne, there's a lot of fear in
Mhm.
those variety of experiences. I'm sure there's fear still today with what you're doing.
Yeah,
I'd love for you to give a little bit of some of maybe a recap, synopsis, or some
absolutely.
insights as to the talk and expand a little bit on your story as well.
Absolutely. So when this opportunity came to give this talk, Cameron, my first reaction was that I've been so courageous all my life, whether changing careers, whether moving from physical therapy to the business school and to filming, to then quitting my job in the middle of the pandemic, which everyone said Utkarsh is the worst idea that ever existed. But I still did those things. And part of me thought that this was courage driving me through these transitions. And so what I did was I set up a WhatsApp group of people who are very close to me, and I trust their judgment. And I put in 7 8 people in that group, and I said that, guys, I have an opportunity to give a TEDx talk, and this is what I'm thinking to speak about. And one of my dear friends who used to work with me previously, he said, Utkarsh, you're talking about courage, right? The whole world is talking about courage. But were you not fearful in any of those moments? Because why don't you want to talk about fear? And that just kind of ignited a spark within me, which said that it actually is not just courage that you need. It's actually your ability to embrace your fear that helps you move forward in life. Because fear, as you're born as a child, fear is a natural instinct. Fear is something that is within you. But courage is something that you have to develop for yourself. And with that, the idea of the talk became that, can fear actually push us to be courageous? And there are three big ideas that I speak about in the talk, Cameron. One of them being that you're the author of your story, and so don't let anyone else write it for you. Which
Mhm.
included these ideas that my parents wanted a different future for me. My spouse could have said something else to me, but what's the future that I want for myself? And so I need to be the author of my story, and no one else gets to do that. The second idea is that when I got into filming and editing, for example, I could have tried but failed and this and that. But who has the choice of coming on and making sure that he gives his best in that moment? And that choice again is mine. So the second idea is that the choice to act is always yours. Do not give that choice away. And when you have the choice, go out and do your best. In this moment, when you and I are having this conversation, Cameron, I want to be my best because you should have my full attention. The listeners who are going to listen to this and invest their time in it, they should get my full attention and presence. And so that choice is mine. I'm going to take that. And the third and final thing that I share in the TEDx is, and I'll probably do that thought experiment with you, Cameron. What's the time right now, Cameron, when you're recording this?
It's 5:26 p.m.
So it's 5:26 p.m. What will be the exact thought, Cameron, in your head in 7 minutes from now? Can you predict that thought for me?
No.
And that's it, right? It's our own brain, our own thoughts, and we cannot predict that exact thought that's going to happen to us in 7 minutes from now. And why are we then trying to predict the future? That when Utkarsh will quit his job, he'll fail as an entrepreneur. When Cameron will record this, something else will happen. We always try and predict the future. But future is a very man made concept because as soon as the future arrives, it becomes the present. And then all you have is this moment to be your best. And so
Mm.
I tell people, don't worry about that future because we've always been used because of our fear to ask the question that what if everything goes wrong? But the idea and the reframing that can be done is that what if you take the right steps and everything goes well? What if we move to Australia and everything goes well? And that's the challenge that I'm going to pose to everyone, that start to reframe that fear and be more courageous, but embrace that fear because it's going to be your driving force.
Mm. I love how you say you're the author of your own story, but I think yet this is a real challenge today to
Absolutely.
be able to have that mindset of writing your own story because like you said, there's a lot of fears,
Yeah.
and those fears come from outside voices. It comes from internal voices that we have, right?
Yeah.
Like for yourself, right? Am I going to, what if I fail and move to Australia? What if I
Yeah.
fail in my job at Columbia University? What if I fail being an executive coach? What if my company fails? How do you continue to stay focused on maybe what I would call your North Star?
Yeah.
Even though there are so many voices out, those outside voices, those
Yeah.
inside voices, really you maybe pulling away from that next big thing for you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's a very deep question. It brings up so many memories for me because it did not happen in one day, Cameron. It
Yeah.
takes time and it takes a lot of effort and it takes a lot of persistence and courage to get there. But the big idea that here is that you got to learn to understand who you really are, because once you really understand who you are, what your values are, and what that North Star is, then it should just keep you hungry
Mm.
towards that North Star. The other thing is that I've built certain statements in life which help me kind of stay on that path. It was 2021 when business was not good, and it felt like I'd done the biggest mistake of my life by quitting my job and becoming an entrepreneur. And in that moment, I worked with a coach for some time, and we came up with a statement which is still on my wall right in front of me, which says that if not me, then who? And if not now, then when?
Mm.
And I used to repeat that statement to me every single day, 100 times and 1,000 times, and whatever time it takes. And so that kind of motivates you and keeps you on the path. But motivation alone is not enough. So then you need discipline, which is another value of mine. So then the discipline is that I'm going to show up and be my best and do all the things that need to be done and learn every single day to make sure that I'm giving myself the best chance to be who I want to be. And I'm giving that opportunity to myself, and I'm not going to be having regrets at the end of the day and saying that, oh, I wish I could have tried, because I don't believe that we should have a life that has regrets in it, and we should be fully focused on doing our best. And so it takes this kind of work, Cameron, to shh down the voices in your own head. And I really feel that if you don't believe in yourself, then who else in the world is going to believe in you?
That's so true. You have to believe in yourself in order to um continue moving forward and keeping focused because I think if you let those voices get to you, get the best of you, it'll steer you probably in the wrong direction that you don't want to go in, and you'll just continue being dissatisfied with what you're doing. And I think the way that, and I'm very appreciative of my parents for this, is they've always said with what you do, make sure you are happy with and you're fulfilled with. And I've always followed that, if I'm at a point where I'm not happy, then
Mm.
maybe I need to make a change. And that could
Absolutely.
be personally or professionally, whatever that might look like, is making sure that you yourself and I like are all you're happy, and truly that's all that matters. You might disappoint people around you. You might disappoint maybe your boss, your maybe CEO, whatever that might
Mm.
look like, but and keep focused on you, because
Yeah.
that was one of the challenges that I had with the corporate job that I had, Utkarsh, is
Mhm.
I was so hesitant to make that change because I knew I was going to upset a lot of people.
Yeah. 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 And it's a very natural phenomena. You go through these cycles. It's not that having a job is right or wrong, or having a business is right or wrong. You have to find your own unique voice. I think that's what's really important. And whatever might make me happy would be very different from what makes you happy and what makes the other listeners happy. And so to be able to do that inner work, Cameron, and be then in a position where you know what happiness really is for you and what success means for you, I think that's gonna do like 90% of the work for you, because once you're done with that work, then the rest of it is just execution. And I say just execution as if it was easy, but the inner work really allows you to stay with that mindset where you're showing up and executing in the right direction.
Yeah, I think many don't take the time for that inner work as well, and I've been challenged with that
Yeah.
over the last 10 years to do that, and I'm still on that journey of making that time. And I want to go into like personal growth a little bit.
Yeah.
Is you mentioned a few things that you invested in yourself in, and I'm sure you have a sort of methodology system for yourself in personal growth. Talk a little bit about that and why doing that inner work and investing in yourself and making that time for that inner work is so important.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's like imagine that you work for a company, or imagine you have your own business, right? It could be either of those. When you work on your own business or for a company, you go through these performance management cycles. You review your business, you do the taxations every year, you evaluate how you're moving month on month or quarter on quarter, right? But what about your own life? What stops you from not looking at your life with the same lens? Have I become better since January of 2024? Have I changed in the last 30 days? And these are the tough questions that I ask myself. We all try and change things during the start of the year, that this is the big year where everything's going to change. I'm going to put these 5 New Year resolutions, and then this is my plan, and that's what I'm going to do. I'll buy Atomic Habits and I'll make all the changes that I can. But come 2 months later, February, we fail. And we've
Yeah.
forgotten what our resolutions were. We've forgotten where we wanted to be. And we're back into that comfort zone on our couch, enjoying Netflix. I
Hmm.
think what's really important for us is to have a process around that. And the process that I've defined is that at the start of the year, I create myself like 3 big goals. That for this year, this is my maybe health goal, this is my financial goal, and this is how I want to be seen on my business, personal brand, whatever that might look like. And then I create a process where I give myself very specific, measurable, SMART. Everyone knows this acronym. We not practice it enough, but I create these specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bound goals for myself. That if I am at X today, then by the end of this month, I have to be X plus 10%. And then I measure them and I do a meeting with myself every month. So there is a meeting scheduled on the calendar on the first day of the month and the last day of the month to evaluate how the month has gone. I write it down in a diary. And so I have data for the last several months as to how I'm making progress on these things or not. And this could be any aspect of your life. And if you focus on it in the right way, that's when you make significant improvements. And the final thing is that when you create a goal for yourself, build the habits that you think will help you attain that goal. And so motivation comes like on a Monday morning, that I'm going to go to the gym today because it's the start of the week. But if you're disciplined, then you just show up every single day without thinking whether I'm too tired today, it's too cold outside, this is happening, that is happening, my son's not well, my daughter's going to nothing. You just show up because that's what you've promised yourself, and you stay true to that commitment. So that's one big idea. The other thing is that invest time in learning. Find yourself a coach if you have to. If you cannot afford a coach, that's okay. Find yourself some mastermind group where you can be a part of it. Find yourself a book you can start to read. A book costs like $20, right? And so $20 is something that you would spend on a pizza party with your friends on a Friday. Buy that book, read that book in a month, and then you're better than 100 other people around you. You're already gaining steam and moving forward. And do it for yourself, because
Hmm.
all what you're trying to do, personal growth, learning, investing in yourself, don't do it because you want to show off to your people. Don't do it because you want to put an Instagram post, or that I finished this book this month. Do it for yourself and just be at it. I think these are the ways that I would recommend people to do that. And ask yourself some hard questions. I think that's something that's really important, Cameron. And I've actually built a journal to help people. And if people were to buy this, they can find it on Amazon. Ignite Life Journal. It is about 183 pages of questions and activities and exercises that help you build a life that you could be proud of. So yeah, that's the easiest way they can do it.
Yeah, I'll definitely drop the link for that journal. And
Absolutely.
I think you touched on some pretty good things there, especially when one of the things with the first thing that you mentioned is goal setting. I
Yeah,
think traditionally people approach goal setting, of course, making these New Year's resolutions
Mm.
and these big goals, these big things to achieve. And the reality is it's very unachievable. And when you
Right.
look at it on a granular, like really, really small, like what are the small shifts that I can make over, the next month?
Yeah.
Some of the things years ago that I did is just with reading it was very hard for me to focus with reading. So it just started with 20 minutes a day of
Yeah.
reading, which turned into 30, which turned into 45, which turned
Yeah.
into an hour. And
Yeah.
now it kind of fluctuates, depending on schedule. But those little shifts that you can make to reach the goals that you want to, and in every area of life, not just personally and professionally, but financially, your health. I think keeping a pulse in all your different areas and making that a priority, because I'm sure you've experienced this, Utkarsh, is you have these times when, work can just be so overwhelming, family, other commitments, and then you lose sight of yourself. And I'm sure those listening are experiencing that too, is they're so busy, they are just, going from having their calendar run their day,
Yeah.
and then you don't have time for yourself. And I learned this from my podcast co-host in another podcast that I'm involved with. He blocks out time just for certain things throughout the day and make sure that he is scheduling stuff around his personal time, right? So he doesn't um interfere with the time that's most important
Yeah.
with his family, with personal growth, with reading, whatever that might look like for him.
Beautiful.
But making those small shifts over time, it makes a huge difference. Like you said, reading for 20, 30 minutes makes a huge difference. And a lot of people are not reading. A lot of people don't make the time to read. But yeah, and you're like, and $20 to spend on a book, there's so many books out there we can learn from people. Instead of meeting them, you can meet them in a
Absolutely.
book and gain so many insights. And I've learned from so many people that I look up to that are world-renowned speakers, and it's just so amazing what knowledge you can learn from them
Yeah.
and what you can take away to help better yourself.
Absolutely. Spot on. Everything you're saying, I completely agree and align with that. There's the term that I use in my TEDx talk, Cameron, that I am a funambulist. And the first time I heard this word, it still is a tongue twister for me. But what this word really means, funambulist, is that I'm a tightrope walker. And as you and I walk this life, aren't we all walking on a tightrope? Because there is others to take care of, there is work to take care of, there is children and schedules and meetings and social interaction and Netflix and Instagram and everything.
Yeah,
And if we in that moment forget about our own selves, then this walk is not going to be worth taking the walk. And so I think it's really important. And I've finished my coffee, but if I were to pour something out of this empty cup, nothing's going to come out. And I think it's important for us to understand that we need to invest in ourselves, because we need to fill our own cup with a lot of love, a lot of care, a lot of learning, a lot of gratitude, and then only we'll be able to support others. And so this idea that, I mean, I wake up at about 4:30, 4:45 every morning, and I have these 2, 3 hours that are just for myself. I do my workout, I do my meditation, I do my journaling. It's not that that's the only way. You could do it at night. I'm not saying that you have to start waking up at 4:30 tomorrow morning. You could do it at night, you could do it in the middle of the day, but find the time to be with your own self, because there is joy. I'm telling you, if there's one person I would love to live with for the rest of my life, that person is me. And
yeah,
so yeah, do that for yourself, and there's joy in that.
yeah. That's awesome. And then Utkarsh, I'd like you to share what is it that you're doing today with your company Ignited is it Ignited Neurons?
Yes.
What is that company?
Absolutely. So with Ignite Neurons, we have a team of consultants. We do learning consultation for organizations that are still kind of trying to figure out what their path is in terms of learning and coaching their people. The whole motive is that the managers of today need to become future leaders, and the only path through that is to humanize leadership for them. So we don't believe in giving them framework A and framework B and framework C. And if you meet an ENTJ and then INFJ, how do you react with them? For us, the whole purpose is that if you work on yourself as a manager, as a leader, then you'll be able to figure out your teams and your organization, and you'll be able to thrive. And I'm going to put the onus not just on the employer, but also on the employee through our work, because ultimately we as employees also need to take ownership of who we are and how we are creating impact within the organization. So we do coaching, we do workshops, we do webinars, and we do that with the clients across the world. We've been lucky to have clients in India, now in Australia, South Africa, and continue to touch lives across the world.
Well, awesome.
Yeah.
Well, Utkarsh, this was a really awesome conversation. I wanted to close out with any final insights, any final words of encouragement to those that are listening. I mean, we have listeners literally across the globe, so you're speaking to quite a wide variety of audience. Last words of encouragement, and then we'll close.
Absolutely. There's this unique spark that's within you, and ignite that spark. It would be an underservice to you, your life, and to your loved ones if you don't live with that extreme joy in every moment, and find that joy for you, and then chase it like it's nobody's business, and yeah, build a beautiful life through reflection, learning, and growth.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Utkarsh. And for those listening or watching, stay at the end, and I'll provide more info on the TEDx talk, the Ignite Life Journal, and then also I'll leave some info on ignited neurons if you want to learn more. Utkarsh, thank you so much for your time. It was great learning all about you and a little bit about your story.
Thank you so much, Cameron. It was my joy to be here, and yeah, look forward to staying connected and our paths intersecting again in the future.
For sure. Thank you. Well, thank you so much for tuning in to Navigation and Discovery with Cameron Singh. I really hope you enjoyed this episode with Utkarsh, and I've provided all the links for you to connect with Utkarsh, his TEDx talk, his journal, all provided below in the podcast description or below if you're watching on YouTube. Really hope that you enjoyed learning the story of Utkarsh and his journey of life in experiencing jobs and careers in different industries, and really hope that this helped you in your journey of life wherever you are at. Also, if you want to connect with me, you can find out those links as well. My book is there. You can go purchase it at CameronSingh.com. You can connect with me, check out some of the other podcasts that I'm involved with, some of the other content as well, and happy to connect with you. You can schedule some time with me. You can go to CameronSingh.com. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you in another brand new episode next week. Take care.